Welcome everyone on TikTok and welcome everyone on Instagram. If you guys could give me a thumbs up, let me know that you can hear me and see me all right. That would be greatly appreciated. All right, perfect. We are moving on TikTok. Thank you so much for the hearts. I appreciate you guys. Keep them coming. And please do share this vid. Also, if you know of someone who has a pressing question, curious, spiritual, paranormal, relationship related, money, literally anything, okay? Anything goes. This is my free advice show. So if you know of anyone who would like some free advice, go ahead and share this video with them now. I do want to say thank you to my YouTube members. So a quick shout out to all of them while you guys tune in. And if I could get a thumbs up letting me know. Okay, thank you. Everything is working. Welcome everyone on Facebook. Ivy Rivera, Ivy Rivera Psychic Medium, and YouTube at Ask Ivy. So thank you so much to my YouTube members. Edgar Velardes, Milove 716, Andrea M, Vanessa, Tony, Melissa S, Jennifer Cole, Christine Watts, Anna, Miami Heat 305-ish, Angie Johnson, Jill Marie, Lucy Marsh, CJG, Yolanda Fisher, Shauna Dempsey, Denise Bennett, Demetris, Language Through Connection, Deanna Marie, Marie D, Mary, Chicken Mama, and Tristan Marion. I so appreciate you guys. You make it possible for me to do these shows on a weekly basis. And if you would like to become a YouTube member, you're going to go onto YouTube at Ask Ivy, hit the join button. That'll show you the 3 different tiers of membership options. My members are getting things like a monthly horoscope. They're getting weekly spirit messages. They get a personal email reading once a month, which pays for the entire membership itself, and a monthly mini class, an Ask Ivy exclusive show, a ton of other stuff. Okay. And it's a lot of fun. So we're going to go over a couple quick announcements while we let everyone tune in. I am running a few minutes late. Jane Goodall passed. She was my idol. And I've had a couple other weird things happen today. Okay. So anyways, I'm a little off, so bear with me. But thanks for being patient and thanks for being here. So I do want to make a couple quick announcements. Holiday Market. Now, for those of you who have never been down there, it's absolutely amazing. The old psych ward. Okay, which then became the Henry Hotel in Buffalo, New York. And now it is the Richardson Olmsted campus. So we do a holiday market out in all of the huts. They're all lit up. Okay, and you walk around, you do all this shopping. I will be out there offering readings, and my Ivy League Psychic Academy readers will also be there every weekend throughout October. Now, my dates are up on the website, ivyriverapsychicmedium.com, on the events page, but I'll run them off real quick right now. So I will be there this Friday. I'll be there again on the 10th, the 11th, the 17th, and the 19th. Okay, and then if you want to see when the other readers from the Ivy League Psychic Academy will be there, again, just go to the events page up on my website. What else do we have going on? Lewiston Harvest and Hops is done. Oakwood Cemetery. So Saturday this week, Oakwood Cemetery, October 4th. Special event. So this is a fundraiser for the cemetery. This is an amazing event. This is probably my favorite event of the year. I'll be doing a gallery show at 5 o'clock. That is included with your ticket purchase. So this is a ticketed event. And afterward, I'll be doing private reads in the mausoleum. Pre-booking is already open for that. Pre-booking is open right now for everything I'm about to mention. Okay, so if you want to go pre-book your readings with me, which I would highly suggest, you can get up to 3 slots per person, or you could try your hand at a walk-in. We are also doing at that event, they're going to have like, different wine tastings. They have a cash bar. They're doing trolley like rides throughout the cemetery, live musicians, ghost stories, all types of fun things. I absolutely love this event. So check it out. Spirits with Spirits Psychic Fair at the hauntingly beautiful Margin Manor Winery is back. If you missed the one that we just did, I think 2 weekends ago, we'll be back out there Sunday, September 21st. You can pre-book with your reader, again, up on the website. All right. And I am working that event. I believe I still have a couple slots open, so you may want to look into that. But walk-ins are welcome. October 26th from 1 to 4 p.m. is that event. So that's an Ivy League Psychic Fair. Okay. It's all readers from the Academy. We also have coming up Spirits of Allentown Walking Tour. This sells out every single time. Tickets are now on sale. Explore Buffalo puts on this great tour where the historical, docent is walking, leading the group through Allentown in Buffalo, New York. And then I am covering the paranormal aspect, the ghost stories, what I see going on spiritually, and it's a ton of fun. So that's going to be October 24th at 5:30. Get your tickets now. Book your seasonal party now, okay? People are waiting until the last minute this year. Something's going on. I think it's just the economy. But don't wait, okay? Because everything's booking up so fast at this point. If you wanted to have a spooky event and to have either me come do a gallery read, private reads for your people or for your business or your corporate event, I do all of that. And when it's too big for just me, I bring readers from the Ivy League Psychic Academy and we host a psychic fair, but you are going to want to book that soon. I would even say start getting your bookings in for the holidays, okay? Like New Year's, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever. Get it done now, okay? You can go onto the website for that information. Also, Ivy Rivera, psychicmedium.com. And the last thing I'm going to announce for now, but there's more on my website. Go to the events page to see what else is going on. My psychic mediumship course, I'm only running one in 2026, and that starts February 3rd. So you're going to want to go ahead and save your seat for that now. If you wanted to become a certified reader with Ivy League Psychic Academy, or you just want to learn psychic mediumship for your own development, or if you are neurodivergent, you're dealing with trauma recovery, you tend to have a lot of like anxiety or depressive stuff going on, empathic ability off the charts, this is usually at the root of why that is going on. Okay. So it helps with so many things. Okay. Also, all right. One more announcement. Diana's pushing me today. All right. So thank you, Diana. So 2 more seats are left for the Victorian tea. My Victorian tea at Margin Manor Winery is going to be November 23rd. This is where I stand up in front of the audience and I give a 1-hour gallery reading, and then I do private reads afterward. Pre-booking is open for that. That is also a ticketed event, so you can't get in for a private read unless you have also gotten a ticket for the main event. And you guys have like a 4-course meal going on, wine tasting, and again, a lovely Victorian tea. So a lot happening at that event. Love this one as well. That is November 23rd. And yeah, tickets are almost sold out. So go ahead and get yourself set up with that. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the questions. Tony Ramos, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. I appreciate your support. And I do want to, real quick, because I'm always forgetting, before I start getting into your free advice here, could everyone please stop real quick, give this video a thumbs up. drop an emoji or a comment of any kind in the comment section. And please do tell me where you're tuning in from, and then subscribe and share this video. Greatly appreciated. So welcome, everyone. I am Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a tiny no airwalk, and this is my Dear Ivy show where I give you free advice on any topic under the sun. This is a play off of Dear Abby, the famous columnist who I remember reading in the newspaper when I was a little kid with my cup of coffee that was mostly sugar and cream, and wanted to be her. It was, my lifelong dream. And I want to say about last year, probably, I threw this show out to the public to see if you guys would bite and had any interest in it. And it's been consistently amazing. So thank you so much for supporting me in being able to live out my dream. And I take any questions of any kind. Don't mistake this for my other shows that are psychic mediumship readings. If you need to book a psychic mediumship reading or a reading of any other kind with me, I offer a ton of stuff and I do work internationally. Go to ivyriverapsychicmedium.com. Esmeralda Marie Rivera, everyone. Can you say hi, Ezzy? Oh, yeah, we love you, Mama. We love you. Okay, just stay off the computer. Hello, Mama. All right. She may be bored tonight. I don't know. She doesn't know. She doesn't know tonight if she wants to be inside or outside or what. What side is what? All right. So our first question coming in here tonight is from Josie. Josie says, "Hi, Ivy. I love using my pendulum and trust the answers I receive, but I've read mixed things about where the answers are coming from. Any pendulum advice you could give would be much appreciated." Okay. So the idea of the pendulum is the same as using a tarot deck when you're not fully trained in your discernment, or using a Ouija board or runes or anything else. So the use of any tool when you don't first know the language of psychic mediumship, okay, meaning when is the information coming to you psychically? When is it coming through spirit? If it's coming through spirit, is that spirit of a high vibration? Is that a spirit that is safe to be communicating with? Or is it a spirit of a low vibration? Remember, spirits that come in that are of a low vibration aren't announcing that they are. They're being deceptive when we look at things like, the trauma that the Ouija board brought to so many in the 80s when it came out, in the 90s. And the long-term negative effects it can have on a family, a home, the family pets passing away. I mean, it's traumatic. Now, the Ouija board in itself is not evil. It is a tool. It is a tool like tarot or the pendulum or anything else. It's the practitioner, when the practitioner doesn't know what they're doing. And the Ouija board, for example, was designed and sold through, I believe it was Fisher-Price, to children. Children ended up trying to contact their deceased grandmas and grandpas and whoever else they had just recently lost, and toxic, negative spirits or evil entities would pretend to be that grandparent or, that spirit. Even sometimes, you'll get that you're picking up on children. Whenever you get children that are earthbound in spirit, that's not a kid. Okay. That is a shapeshifter. That is something toxic and negative. Children who die young, are always going to pass. They're going to cross to the other side 99.9% of the time. So, we have to be careful about what we're picking up. If you feel as though your pendulum is sometimes giving you a wonky vibe or weird info, or you have other signs of paranormal activity going on around you, okay, or you're feeling like a burning at the back of your neck, stabbing pain in your stomach, a headache, you're having nightmares, the pets are starting to act weird, you're hearing noises, noise throwing, anything. You need to get back to the basics, okay? You need to learn the language of psychic mediumship. So, again, my psychic mediumship course is up there. It's where everyone needs to start. And anyone who seems to go forward and has gaps and holes in their understanding later on down the road ends up right back there eventually anyways. So learn the basics of discernment, but also the lost language of, at the very least, the psychic and mediumistic languages. Okay, so yeah, that's why people talk about that a lot. But if you're confident and it's working and it's proven to be true, you're not necessarily having problems. All right, we are going to move on to Anna. Anna says, I broke up with a guy and I'm feeling bad not responding to messages because I still care for him, but I need the space to move on. How do I get over feeling bad, not caving, and messaging back? Okay, so we have to remember what love actually is. If you need space from this person, the most loving thing to do is to be honest. And that's what you chose to do. So the universe is holding you accountable for self-love. The universe expects you to do what's right for you. You are not responsible for catering, overreaching, caretaking over this other person. You are going to have to be authentic and choose self-care and self-love. And when you don't do that, you get what I call negative karmic kickback. So the universe would say to you, really? You're going to overreach? You're going to force yourself to be around this person you don't want to be right now? You're going to be inauthentic, which is a form of lying about it. You're going to come from that low level energy, and the universe says, okay, essentially good luck with that. The universe removes the hand of protection off of you, and you could see all your blessings slow down, dry up, reverse. And I'm talking everything: health, wealth, other relationships, everything. Because life is a spider web. Everything is connected. There aren't categories. Everything touches everything else. So every time you live inauthentically, but especially in relationship to other human beings, you get penalized for it because you are responsible for yourself, self-love, self-care. Only then will the universe say, okay, very good. You did your part. You did your 50%. I'll come in and do my 50%. So you do not want that hand of protection and blessings removed from you. It's also about understanding that we live in such a toxic society, as it's been for hundreds of years, where we, especially as women, are trained to cater to men. And if you want to be part of the revolution of decentering men and deprogramming from the patriarchy, you need to start here when the universe gives you an opportunity. Thank you for the hearts, TikTok. You need to start here when the universe gives you an opportunity to prove it. Centering him is doing nothing for him. This is why we have the male loneliness epidemic, and we have all of their, they think they're entitled to everything. We have Gen Z going down the toilet, right-wing extremism and the hatred toward women. If you give him attention when you actually want personal space, you are feeding the demise of the feminine existence. In a really hardcore way. That may sound harsh, but that is what it is, because you're feeding the patriarchy. You have been trained to cater to him. What he wants is irrelevant. Okay. What he needs is irrelevant. If you need space, you take your space and everything in your life will improve. What you're battling right now is just the emotional effects of what it is to set a boundary that's healthy and hold the line when someone else is demanding more out of you, wanting and reaching for more out of you. Okay. So, once we learn this and can master this, we could do it in any situation. And that should feel somewhat exciting to you. Try to think of it that way. On TikTok, we have a Kenzie M saying, advice for me for love. Okay, well, this isn't a psychic reading. I guess I'll just tell you what without tapping into anything psychic or mediumistic, because I'm not doing that tonight. Advice for love. I would say that when you are looking for love in your life, eliminate the old, dusty, crusty concept of romance, which was constructed in, I believe, the early 1600s for poor men to gain access to women. Okay, because all the other men were snatching them up. Romance is toxic. It's man-made. It doesn't hold. So first of all, if you're looking for love in your life, get rid of that. Story tale, fairy tale, that storyline, and replace it with different opportunities to meet people who you normally wouldn't think of as providers of love, and be that for other people. Try to be an active listener. Try to reach deeper levels of intimacy through communication with other people. These people do not have to be your BFF. It doesn't have to be someone in your family. It can be someone random on the street. It could be someone you're talking to online. It can be an acquaintance, a coworker, okay? Or maybe someone you're meeting when you're out trying to make new friends. This is how we gain friendships, which can offer genuine love, real, authentic, uplifting, and healing love, is by showing up and giving it to others. Okay. Love will also come to you when there is no human being around. It will come from the universe, animals, nature. You are constantly being provided with the love that you need. But we definitely want to think outside of romance, because that makes us all feel like it doesn't exist anymore. Like love isn't even a thing. Okay. So stay away from toxic, man-made concepts of love and move more into what is authentic, universal, true love. Maraid D says, hi, Ivy. How do you keep your energy higher vibrational during the live show readings when the questions you get aren't what you enjoy answering? I feel like love and relationship questions drain my energy. Yes. So I have been there, certainly. Great question. Okay. Here's one for all you readers out there. Okay. If you are the type of reader who is a genuine light worker and you want to be out here healing the world and doing something with purpose, you don't want to be dealing with constant questions about toxic so-called love relationships where people are actually needing therapy, they're codependent, they've got poor attachment styles, they don't want to do the work on themselves, they're jumping from relationship to relationship, they're in a relationship and they're cheating and they're already asking about the next person, should I go with this person and that person? It makes you feel like trash. As a reader, it makes you feel like you're selling yourself out, to do this kind of work. And you want to give the healing message to them. But when you do, they're going to reject that anyways. They just want to hear what the flavor of the month is going to be. Okay. Or how they can get their dopamine hit, or how they can stay in toxic low level energy for longer. So they don't have to go to therapy, do the shadow work. So the trick is to understand that that is exactly what's going on, and to have your boundaries set, hold the line, have your moral compass ready to go before you hit that live button, you turn that microphone on. Know your ethical code of conduct in your sleep, so that the minute one of these toxic questions starts creeping up, you feel it. You feel it in your spine, you feel it in your neck, you feel it in your gut, and you get ready. You put your armor on and you handle it in such a way where you are giving the raw, honest truth. You are not concerned with how it lands or whether or not it is received. and you are quickly, efficiently moving through that reading to get on to the next one. The more you can prove to the universe that that's how you're going to handle those types of situations, the more the universe will say, okay, you're earning it. I'm going to give you some higher vibrational clients, viewers, a better audience, the first few years, and I always say this to my psychic mediumship students, the first year and a half, to 2 years that you're reading for the public, expect it to be low. Expect all of it to be low, every aspect of it to be low. Okay. Other people will see you as competition and want to take you out. You'll get crazy stalkers who are probably also other competition, wanting to take you out. You'll get clients who have, because your readings are probably free or very inexpensive, they've got the money to throw away. It's all about love or toxicity, that isn't working. People who don't really want to evolve, and you have to prove that you are going to handle that like a champ to move on up, from it. But I also think it's important to allow yourself to do special shows on different kinds of questions. So hold certain lives where they're not allowed to ask any of that, because otherwise you'll go crazy. CJG says, hi, I sent $10. You did not have to send $10, CJG, but thank you so much. I can put that toward Ask Ivy next week if you want. Or if that's a donation, greatly appreciated. My question is, how do I get insight into what I'm supposed to do in life through meditation? Oh, God, I hate meditation. My thoughts are all over the place during meditation. I want to make sense of it. Just don't. I mean, you know what? The whole psychic mediumship course, 28 weeks, I never make you guys meditate once. It's not going to get you anywhere in terms of like connecting really with your higher mind or spirit or your psychic ability, so you can read the future options and what is going to be the best for you to do. It's not going to help you tap in with timelines. Meditation works for some people. And if it does, that's great. But I also see with a lot of those people, they spend an excessive amount of time in meditation. They're hooked on it like it's a drug. It's another form of addiction for a lot of people. It takes so many people out to sea and dumps them there. Okay. So you have to be careful with meditation. I get a lot of people coming to me who have a lot of problems in their life because they spent too much time in meditation. You know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Here's the key to everything. The left logical side of your brain is where you're going to go for thinking and processing and exactly what it sounds like, logical answers. The right intuitive side of your brain is going to help you to tap in to your higher mind, your life contract, your psychic ability, the spirit world, everything else that you need to know. Okay, so if you are looking for insight specifically into what you came to Earth to do, stick to questions about your life contract and make sure that you know also how to talk to your guides. Remember, you have 5 guides appointed to you. Okay. If you guys aren't familiar with them, there's a class up on my website called Meet Your Guides. So you've got your joy guide who watches over your mental and emotional well-being and aids you with spiritual development. You have a relationship guide. You have a work and money guide. You have a protector guide in case you ever feel like you're getting in trouble or you're having health issues, whatever. And then you have an Akashic who watches over all of your past life information. There is nothing that should require you to get into deep, long, drawn out, uncomfortable states of meditation that aren't typically going to work in the end anyways. You can just call in whichever one of those guides that you need to sit with you for about 10 to 15 minutes and ask them your questions. They will either answer you immediately, or I would expect it to come up in dreams, signs, and symbols over the next ballpark 3 days. All right. See, she said, it's okay. Just keep it. You deserve it. You're so sweet. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And Edgar Velardes wants to know, as a therapist, it's hard to help parents of my clients understand that, or they just don't care and want me to fix their kids. Hard to help parents of my clients understand. Understand what? What is that? Or they just don't care and want me to fix their kids. Okay, so I think I get the gist of this question. I think what he's saying here is that often he, as a therapist, is dealing with these children and the parents just want him to fix everything. They don't really care. They don't really care about the process, what's wrong with the child. I would say that, probably in situations like that, it's heartbreaking because, they're causing the child to have the disruption. We now know that kids who are showing a lot of behavioral issues or depression, anxiety disorders, it came from parents who were abusive, neglectful, deliberately scapegoating, maybe making that child the black sheep. I mean, whatever they did in that house behind closed doors, now the child is presenting as having symptoms from that neglect and abuse already. And they're proving it to you by not caring. They don't want their dirty laundry aired. They don't want you to have an opportunity to accuse them of anything or make suggestions about how they can improve, because that child is being used up, especially if that child is a scapegoat, because that child is upholding the rest of the family. If they don't have a punching bag, what are they going to do? So they don't want you bringing it up. And that may be why they're presenting as being like, aloof or uncaring. In addition, is because if they spend too much time talking to you, you're going to call them out on some stuff. So the least amount of time, the least amount of interest that they can show you is their way of sort of confronting you on that. And I think, I don't know anything about being a professional therapist. Certainly, I mean, I don't have a degree in that, but I'm sure that you were trained to put that in your notes, and you can hope for the best. But, especially in this country, nobody cares about the children. I mean, just look at the gun violence, the number one cause of death for children. No one cares. So those kids are going to have to find a way to make it. And what you are giving to them is of tremendous value. I would, if I were you, tune out the parents entirely once you get some signs that they are causing this, that they don't care, trust patterns, that they will continue not to care, and do the absolute best you can, because you may be that child's only lifeline. Let's move on to another one here from Nicole. Okay, Nicole Clarkson says, I'm going through a divorce. How can I stop caring how people will think of me during this process and when it's finalized? Well, I think it's actually a good alert system for you to do an assessment on who in your life deserves to be there and who needs to kick rocks. Because if you are going through a divorce and you are worried about certain people in your life thinking of you in a negative way, talking trash, triangulating, that is an opportunity for you to pinpoint who specifically. So spend more time with yourself asking that question. I would get out a paper and a pen and I'd get petty about it. I would get petty. I would make columns and lists, and I would have a separate shit list. I mean, I would just know exactly who, I think is doing this, or I have proof of talking negatively, about me, sending negativity. The key is make sure you're not being paranoid. Make sure it's not all coming from your ego. It needs to be accurate. So your ego, which is fear, manipulation, and control, could be steering that whole ship. It could be the driving force behind you feeling bad. It was probably the driving force behind you staying all those years as well. So you need to get in touch with who you genuinely are. You need to identify, what is my ego, fear, manipulation, and control. and what is my authentic self, which is full of love and positivity and healing and optimism for what world I could create for myself. When you're leaning into your authentic self, that higher vibration, you don't give a shit what anybody thinks about you. When you show up authentically for your life every day, these types of thoughts never enter your mind, right? Much less set up camp there like this. So you have to own and take responsibility, hold yourself accountable for the fact that you have spent probably most of your life working from a place of ego, okay? Or at least in this relationship, you have found yourself giving into patterns of ego, which is low level energy and catering to saving face and overreaching and not being in alignment with your true life's purpose, not being honest with what you need and what's going on. And you need to, start there. You need to bring some healing to it. But so help me God, if you catch one person giving you a side eye for choosing to move on, they are going to need to be demoted. They need to maybe be put on your shit list. They need to be, and watch out for who they hang out with, right? Because if you're catching it from one person, it could be that whole group of people. Do not tolerate it. Remember, what you are doing right now is learning to live in your truth. And that is something to be celebrated. And it is a harsh reality often that when we go through a major level up in life, or we go through a hard hit, we hit rock bottom with something, we see who our true friends are. Okay. But it's paying attention to what everyone else thought that got you into this mess in the first place. Okay, is this the other part of Edgar's, or is this okay? How to help parents understand that it's important to them to do basics such as using validation, active listening, praise, etc., is needed to help their kids feeling better. Well, you tell them. I mean, you don't need to help the parents understand. You're either going to have willing parents or you're not going to have willing parents. So you give the information. But I mean, I would say by the time a kid ends up in your office, we've got problems. So expect it more. It is cleverly hidden for sure. I think you're starting to really figure it out. Yeah. It's a dark fact. Okay, let's move on. Who else do we have? So Dan says, hi, Ivy. How do I activate my intuition? How to know when it's my intuition? Okay, so I have a 28-week course, psychic mediumship course on this. It's a little complicated to explain here, but essentially what you're doing is you are needing to manage the energies. So before you really activate your intuition, you want to make sure that you know how to properly manage what is already there. If you don't do it that way, it can lead to anxiety disorders and misdiagnoses and what looks like maybe manic depression or even schizophrenic episodes. It can lead to all kinds of things that we just don't need. Okay. So ultimately, it's understanding that you have empathic ability, you have mediumistic ability, and you have psychic ability. And each one is a separate language, but all three work together. So getting educated on what that means is key. Understanding when it's your intuition, versus your imagination is probably the hardest question, because it requires a lot of imagination to tap in with your intuition. So there isn't a divide there. When we say, well, that could have been my imagination, it probably was in part your imagination to get the message across. Probably, I don't think of, eagles every day of my life. I don't have an eagle in my house. I don't have an eagle sitting on the table right now. Okay. But when an eagle pops into my head, or I'm aware of the symbol of an eagle, I know my imagination conjured that up and I know what the message there is. Okay. that maybe there's forgiveness that's needed right now, or I'm coming into a period of strength, or I'm about to have a win. I need to see things differently. So it's understanding, that these different parts of your brain all work together. I would say that the other key thing, though, that trips a lot of people up is fear versus intuition. So if you find that you can't distinguish between what is like paranoia or fear or a flashback versus your gut instinct, your intuition, you're really going to want to work through that a lot. Okay. And that is going to come from a lot of journaling, maybe even therapy, shadow work. We need to understand that there is a massive difference between feeling something that comes from our emotional intelligence versus our intuitive intelligence. Intuitive intelligence will always trump emotional intelligence and logic, because energy never lies, but often our logic trips us up and our emotions will typically trip us up. Okay. So it just takes a lot of education and practice. Great question. Nikki says, okay, so this one's from Nikki. Going through a legal separation, how can I stop caring what people think of me while I navigate this process, as my estranged husband is making things more difficult? Okay, why is that so similar to the other one? Did we already do this one? So I guess this is just a similar question to what the other girl asked. That's interesting. So if you're going through a legal process and your estranged husband is making things difficult, you want to stop caring what other people think. I'm going to have to tell you to, either go back and listen, or I'm going to tell you the same thing I just told the other girl. You have been trained from birth. You have been programmed by society to attach your self-worth to a man, period, point blank. Okay. And this is an international problem. You need to break out of that, break free from the matrix, whatever, decenter men. Okay. Deprogram from the patriarchy. This is a long, dirty journey, and you got to get on it. And this is just the motivator you needed. Okay. You are attaching your sense of identity and your self-esteem to this man who is proving probably on the daily to be a bigger and bigger all the time. Okay. And you're allowing that to continue because you're worried about what other people think, because all these other people around you were also programmed to think of your value and your worth as being attached to a man. Those days are dead, done, over with, long gone. Okay. Women have their own jobs now. We can have bank accounts. We can have credit cards. We can have land. We can have our own money. You don't need him in any way, shape, or form. And you need to finally release that lie that you were told, because now that he's going, you're down to the bare bones. And it doesn't feel good. You don't know your worth. You don't seem to know who you are. You're not in touch with your authentic self and your power. And it's time to take it back. Also, don't forget, he's counting. He's playing on, right? You doing this to yourself and allowing other people to do this to you. And that's going to be bad. Okay. Through a court system, he's able to wear you down without even throwing a punch. Okay. Because you're doing it to yourself at this point. Let's move on to another one. So Mairead says, thank you, Ivy. I will be using that advice for my future live shows. Absolutely. Have fun with it. Christina H says, hi, Ivy. I've forgiven my ex, and I wonder, can writing letters to people who've hurt me help me let go, forgive, and build healthier relationships with myself and future relationships? I think that writing letters can help, but I think that if you feel the need to send it to the person who has already shown a pattern of not being interested, not having empathy for you, not wanting to rebuild, not wanting to work on themselves, if they've already proven that, that's a letter you need to not mail. If you are being honest about writing it for the sake of your healing, not to get the other person back. Okay. If you're actually writing it for your own healing, yes, I think it can be hugely beneficial. Whether you tear it up, you put it away in a drawer, you burn it, you could do a releasing ceremony with this. I would absolutely do that. I think that what it's really doing, the process of writing is a magical thing, whether it's automatic or, you're fully doing it from a place of logic. You are healing while you process your thoughts. And so much more, like a purge, can come out when you have dedicated the time, because it is a ceremony, to sit down with that paper and pen and let it out. So it's really brilliant and easy, but things may come out that you didn't even expect. And that's amazing. And that, yes, that of course that helps with future relationships because you won't let yourself get back there again. Annie, A-N-I-E, Annie says, what advice would you give someone who feels like they're always people pleasing? Well, if you feel like you're always people pleasing, then you're probably dealing with a dysregulated nervous system. And I can't prescribe a diagnose, but I think that it is from CPTSD. It was CPTSD Awareness Month in September. I posted quite a lot if you want to go back through my posts on social media here. I posted a few videos on CPTSD, even speaking specifically on what you're bringing up here. You may want to Google that, but it could also be connected to PTSD. What happens when you've been through any type of trauma, you've been through neglect, you've been through abuse, or even if you've just been raised in a toxic culture that forced you to overreach and overgive and abandon yourself for other people's needs and to keep the peace and to walk on eggshells for others and to, constantly telepathically or clear empathy, overreach into their energy to make nice of everything. In any of those circumstances, it's going to end up being a hard habit to break. And you really need to understand the difference between when you feel like you're people pleasing and you actually are people pleasing. Okay. So I would start there. I would be like, well, am I actually overreaching? Am I actually stifling myself or being inauthentic or not stating my needs or being truthful? Am I really doing that? Or do I just feel anxious as hell, dysregulated, right? Off the rails right now. And I'm not doing it through my actions. I'm just feeling it physically, mentally, energetically. Okay. So distinguish between the two and then take it from there. Again, journaling, notebooks, taking notes, knowing what your triggers are too. Because once you can figure out more of what types of situations you feel dysregulated in, or with what types of people or circumstances you feel a need, a responsibility, right, to overreach and people please for your own safety and protection, we have to figure out where those hot spots and triggers are too. Christina says, thank you, Ivy. I appreciate the advice. You are so welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I do want to stop real quick before I take any more, to encourage everyone to please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment of any kind. Please do subscribe and share this video. If you would like to become a YouTube member, it is the best way to support me, or even if you want to go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe, I would so appreciate that. And that is at Ask Ivy. So for those of you tuning in late, this is my Dear Ivy free advice show. I am not doing psychic mediumship readings. If you need to book a reading with me, you can do that on the website anytime. I do work internationally, Ivy Rivera, psychicmedium.com. For now, drop your question of any kind and I will be getting to you. So on Facebook, we have Jack F wants to know, is it possible to manifest the wrong thing? And how do you avoid that? Yes, we often manifest something that we don't necessarily end up wanting. Okay. I would say that the best way to avoid that is to be careful how you use manifestation. Manifestation is most productive when you are focusing on visualizing and feeling emotionally something you want, someone you want, wherever you want to go, whatever it is, and you hold it for 15 to 30 seconds. And then you release it, let go into the universe, and you let the universe roll with it. You don't think on it anymore. You're not pressuring it. You're not staying attached to it. And because that is so successful, as long as you don't have a bunch of blocks in the way, you have to do block removal first, if so. But as long as you don't have a bunch of blocks in the way, you could almost instantaneously pull that thing into you, depending on what it is. So the wheels get turning, it's coming closer and closer to you, and you are ready to receive it. And it gets here, and you're like, that's unfortunate. Okay, what's wrong with this? Often people who have this problem manifest too quickly, which is a great problem to have. Okay, it's good to know you can do it, but you haven't thought it through. Either you don't know fully yourself in regards to this thing that you think you want. You haven't done enough self-development. You haven't asked yourself enough questions. You're not coming from the most truthful place within yourself, or you're developing. You didn't know any better yet. The, other part may be that you were kind of sloppy with it in that you put your order out to the universe without punching in the details. So this can happen when, for example, you want to attract a love partner to you. And so you're like, I want this love partner. I want this person to have black hair and green eyes and biceps. And you're like, yeah, that's what I want. Okay, well, he shows up, but you didn't say anything about his personality, his ethical code of conduct, his character. You didn't ask for integrity. You didn't ask for him to be an active listener. You didn't ask for him to genuinely love you. You didn't, if you didn't do this, he could show up and be a freaking demon. You know what I mean? You have to be careful. I think of it like, every time I go on Amazon, I have to order something, as much as I hate Amazon. Okay. Sometimes it happens. You have to be careful when you place your order. Do the research on the product, look for the best price, get the specifics. What is the shipping? Am I paying on shipping? How soon can I get it? Is there a discount code? I mean, go through every detail, and then, you could tweak that manifestation if you need to as you go, but don't keep it too broad. Okay, especially if you're powerful at doing this. Great question. Do you have any other questions coming in? Okay, we have one from YouTube. This is Tina. Tina C on YouTube. Okay, how do you tell the difference between true intuition and just the fear of overthinking? Okay, so this is similar to someone else's question earlier, but this is in regards to intuition and overthinking. So here's the big difference there. When your intuition is telling you something, whether it is coming from your psychic ability or it's coming from a spirit, it is going to be the still, small voice. It will not compete with your ego. It is always going to be there and something that you can tap into, like a consistent truth. Okay. It's sort of the polar opposite of having like a deadline looming and you've got a dark cloud over your head and you're like, oh, this deadline. No, it's the same. Okay. It's consistent. It's always there. It never changes. So it is not only consistently there, it is consistently consistent. It is the same because energy never lies. because it is truth. When it is you're overthinking, it's not coming from the right intuitive side of your brain. It's coming from your left logical side of your brain. And when you overthink, it starts to mess up your nervous system. It can cause a lot of anxiety. It can cause stress dreaming and nightmares, grinding your teeth, headaches, typically headaches right here or right here. Okay. And it doesn't bring you any peace. When you're coming at something logically, you keep asking about it. Okay. You keep like going back for more information or a different answer, like it isn't true. When it's coming from your intuition, when you hear that answer, you may not like that answer. You may emotionally be hoping to God it's wrong and praying for something else, but you have an inner peace. You have a stability there. It's true. Okay. It somehow makes sense with your soul and you can rest. Now, you can backpedal, you can get double-minded, and you can cause yourself a world of pain, but you don't need to. Okay, that's a choice, and that is overthinking. Great question. Thank you. Nakia Cook. Nakia wants to know, for myself, how might I invite more opportunities or partnerships that support my long-term vision? Okay, so I just did this in the last couple weeks, and I am like super impressed with myself because in the past, not so much. This is a great question. How to invite more opportunities and partnerships, meaning, so what she's really saying here is that she wants more of the like-minded. She wants more people she's in alignment with. She wants more of these expansion opportunities with like high vibrational systems and people, these partnerships. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that everyone who's going to come her way, is of the highest vibration. Maybe she's going to use that temporarily. Maybe she could just use it as stepping stone or a leverage. Okay. But it needs to be in alignment with where she's going and what she asked for. So here's the trick that I used. And again, I was blown away with how well it turned out. This is ridiculous, actually. I got to tell this story. So I'm going to take a long way home here. I wanted exactly what you want. And a big part of the reason for that is that the world is changing very quickly, and with the revolution and what I've been doing the last 16 years, well, this has been an amazing ride. I want out of that energy. I am ready for something higher and bigger. Okay. So I started asking for it. You could say praying about it or manifesting very specifically, and mine's going to be different from yours. So I would get out a notepad and pen. Again, same message to you here with this. Write down a minimum of 15 specific types of people or partnerships and opportunities that you want. You could break that up into different categories as well. Okay. But get specific, fold it up, put it away in a drawer and let it go. Stop thinking about it. Let the universe do its thing. You did your 50% by writing it out. You placed your order. Let the universe do its 50%. So I did this. I've been doing this for about a month, probably a month and a half. Okay. And then when I showed up I was out of town. I had to do a gig the other day. It was a 2-day event. The universe placed me right next to someone who has all of the networking I need, who has all of the partnerships that I'm looking for, who works, his jaw dropped when he said to me, what's your, client base? What's your demographic? I said, women 25 to 62. He said, holy shit, that's mine. He has everything I needed. So, I told him sometimes they cast out psychic mediums. They don't want us there, but I would love to try if you could share, your information with me. So hopefully I hear from him, but we talked about this for like 2 days. On the other side of me, I'm not going to go through the whole spiel, but on the other side of me was a woman who has the other aspect of everything that I need. And all three of us, bam, 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 drove 1 hour and 15 minutes to be there, right? We are all at exactly the same place within our careers in regards to vending and this and that and the other. It was nuts. So I think that, again, getting specific and really truly being willing to back it up, because if you aren't ready, you could either get nothing back in return or some mixed matched energy from the universe. But if you are really ready to go, when those opportunities present, you make sure you grab onto it and you ride that wave. Okay. Tell the universe, I want more of this. Love this question. Nakia, I am so feeling your energy. I'm so excited for you. Okay, awesome. Yes. She said, wow, that's awesome. Yes, it is. I have goosebumps just talking about it. Amaris Diavilla. What a beautiful name. Amaris Diavilla. What's the first step to take when you want to completely change your life path? Well, I don't think it's worth changing your life path until you know your life contract. So plug, book life contract reading with me. We can look at your 5 to 6 different pivotal points. You only get 5 to 6 opportunities to level up in your life, and you need to maximize every single one of those. You need to know what you need to let go of and how you're supposed to build and what it's all about. The alternative, and I've been testing this out for probably 17 years or so, the alternative to getting a life contract reading with me is to see a good Vedic or Western astrologer. They are going to tell you the same exact stuff I'm going to tell you, but they're going to maybe give a little more color, to it. They're going to go through your whole chart. You want to let them know ahead of time. Of course, you want to know what your purpose is and what you're really here to do. The alternative to that is to get a numerology chart. Now, I have talked to numerologists and astrologers, and we have put my life contract right up. Bam, bam, bam. All three are identical. Okay. So you have some options here as far as figuring out what you're here to do. Because just changing your life path in itself is not going to bring any resolution. You could move to a different country, you could divorce, you could go off and have a child, you could change careers, you could do X, Y, and Z, and it will not matter if you're out of alignment. So it starts there at the core, at the root. Get your roadmap, and then naturally you will be able to change your life path as you move toward what you're supposed to be paying attention to. James Xavier Mendez. James, my favorite boy name. Love that. Okay, James, what is your question? What's the healthiest way to set boundaries without feeling guilty? So I think understanding your roots is key. When you know whether or not you came from a sort of collectivist society, if you came from, a family, you came from, how do I want to say, like, an upbringing, a culture that trained you to sacrifice yourself for the peace or for the family or for elders or whatever, okay, you're going to want to start there. So look back at your programming. Look back at what maybe has now become a generational curse, which I don't believe in, but I do believe in psychological programming. Absolutely. Look back at any type of programming society has put into you, your educational system, your family, your culture, okay? Then you will better identify why it is that you have a desire to self-sacrifice. And I would say that after that, it's really just understanding what triggers your guilt, what and who is making you specifically, and you're going to have to write this down. Okay. Just to keep it in order, because in your head, you could second guess yourself and it could become stressful. Make a storyline. I would even journal one situation at a time. Give it its own separate piece of paper, or each person you feel guilty about setting a boundary with. I have to fix TikTok. But you want to pinpoint where you're getting triggered, and then you want to go even deeper. What about that situation or person is making me feel like I'm obligated to give to them? And the only other thing I'll say about this, because I know I touched on this earlier a bit with someone else, is that you need to remember that the universe is holding you accountable to set your boundaries and to keep them set. Okay. So every time you people please, you break a boundary, you shouldn't feel guilty about setting it with that person as much as you should feel, guilty about the way the universe is going to remove its blessings and hand of protection from you. So if you're going to feel guilty for abandoning yourself. Okay? Because that is your job, to protect yourself. I have to do this puzzle on TikTok in order for the live to continue. And I did it wrong. It's like I'm like a monkey, or I don't know, a bot. I don't know what they're expecting here. Okay. Let's see what else we have coming up here. Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's move on. Was it still working? Okay, good. Yeah, I really can't tell when that puzzle pops up. I can't tell if it like shuts down entirely or what. All right, thank you. So we have another question coming in here from Facebook, and this is Monty. Monty says, how do you know when a friendship has run its course? Great question. I would say that, first of all, you find that the other person is one-sided, or you feel as though you're not getting the nourishment out of that relationship that you once did. I would also say that realizing that you have outgrown this person, or they've outgrown you, whatever, take it out, resonates. But I think more people need to measure what the success of any relationship they get involved in is going to be based on whether or not each individual is actually growing. So if you're dealing with a friend who like doesn't take care of themselves, they really haven't changed, they're afraid of growth, they're stagnant or cyclical, if you're doing what you need to do in life, you're going to outgrow them. It is inevitable. I would also say that if you feel heavy after talking to them, dealing with them, spending any time with them, if you feel not only heavy, but maybe confused about their energy, like you think of them in such a way where it's like, is there a problem here? Is something wrong here? Or you're sort of overreaching into their energy, almost like you want to fix something or know more. I think that's typically a sign that something is going on there. Okay. Something maybe negative or toxic, or, maybe they are feeling toward you that you are mirroring to them. You're showing them what they need to do. For example, every time, here's how I've lost the majority of my friendships, and it's been my choice, and I will burn that bridge. I will cut them loose when it's time, especially if this happens. I grow, I level up because I work my butt off. It's what I love to do. I'm here to live on earth, right? I take this seriously. What else are we doing here? So because I'm always focused on that, I have a fast rate of growth and expansion. And when my friend starts to resent that because they feel challenged by it, even though I'm not challenging them, I'm not telling them what to do. I don't care what they do. Grow, don't grow, it's on you. But when they start to feel that watching you do what they should be doing is challenging them or confronting them or bruising their ego, jealousy is going to start brewing. And it will come out in the beginning, usually in subtle ways, right? Cutting remarks, backhanded comments, acting like they didn't hear you when you are celebrating something, not being there for you when you hit rock bottom. And it's over. and that's it. So you just have to be really honest about whether or not you feel like it's still good for you. I would also say I've had to leave some friends just because they don't grow, and they didn't do anything wrong really, but it's just boring. They're just boring. I can't take it anymore. You know what I mean? Like my energy is drained just because they're like, ugh, so it could be anything. You don't need, no is a one word answer. Okay. Thank you for the hearts on TikTok. No is a one word answer. If you need to go, you need to go. And you don't have to say anything about it. You could just be less available. You right? Helen DeCourcy wants to know. Hi, Ivy. Hi, Helen. Are things going to get easier for me anytime soon, or is this a test of some sort, if that makes sense? Okay, so I think that, and again, I'm not doing psychic mediumship questions tonight, but this is just basic advice. I would say that what you need to do when you feel like you're going through a test is be realistic about it, because all of life is a test. There isn't a day where you're not being tested. Every single minute I open my mouth here on the show, it is some variety of a test. The entire human existence on earth is a test. So there isn't a question as to whether or not you're being tested. You're being tested. You're being tested all the time. So accept it, get comfortable in the discomfort, and how can you maximize, winning in this type of situation? I need to look at that one more time. Diana, if you could pop that up. Thank you. Because she said, okay, is it going to get easier for me? Okay, that was it. Okay, Diana, you could put the other one up. Is it going to get easier? No, testing does not ever lessen. I would say that the higher up we elevate, the more tests we go through. But what are you going to do? You're here on earth. You chose to come here, right? So you got to see it through. It's like running a marathon. You're like, oh my God, my legs are going to give out, or like I'm going to die. You're probably not. I mean, you may have to rest at some point, but I mean, you're going to make it through the finish line. You need to just get more in touch with the reality of what your experience here on earth as a spiritual creature is. And when you give up the resistance to that, it's like 80% of the battle right there. So everything else will get easier, because what you're doing is sort of like going against, like you're fighting against the wind, you're going against the grain, right? And we need to be fluid in life. So if you wake up every day and you say, what are my tests today? What are my wins today? And and I'm serious, like do an evaluation. I would recommend this to everyone, like before you go to bed at night, or at least a couple times a week, look at your wins. Celebrate your wins. Spend more time in that vibration, because that's when you're in alignment with success. Don't see life being a test as like an exhausting, horrible experience, or else you're just really fighting it. And I would say that being authentically willing, because you can't lie to the universe, to change where you need to handle your emotions in maturity, to use self-control over your mind, and to set boundaries where they need to be set. Okay. You committing to the universe that you will do that when called to do it, to elevate yourself. That's when you're going to see things get easier. Things are really hard when we have resisted in those areas, when we try to bury our head in the sand. Okay. So yeah, those are good places to start. Pinkness says, hi, Ivy, any advice on healing the feast or famine patterns? You're welcome, Helen. Any advice on healing the feast or famine patterns? And I am going to, I think, probably have to wrap it up. How many more? Diana, if you could let me know in the comment section how many more we have. Any advice on healing the feast or famine patterns? So When we are dealing with past life issues, a generational curse, and again, I don't believe in curses, but I do believe in psychological programming. Okay. So when we are dealing with these patterns of desperation from the past, and it's been handed down maybe from generation to generation, or your country, or whatever, your culture, your society, I mean, whatever it is, we are in a position where we have to work through a very slow moving karma on that. Okay, so you have to be ready to be in it for the long haul. This is possibly one of the most difficult karmic cycles to break free from. And the most important thing is to remember that when it's time for you to deal with another challenge, deal with another level of it, like another layer to the onion, the universe will present you with that opportunity. But the universe takes its sweet ass time on this one, like nothing else. So don't try to rush through it. Okay. Just learn the lessons, do the detoxing, and work really consistently, not hard, but consistently on your manifestation techniques where you're visualizing what you are worthy of having and what you want, and work with unblocking. Okay, so that's removing obstacles that are in the way. And our prosperity will dry up if we're dealing with people we're not supposed to be. So look there first. Sherwin Delco says, "What's your advice for handling burnout when you can't afford to take a break?" So not being able to take a break so that you can like feed yourself, for example, you are going to need to, first of all, eliminate putting toxins in your body. So whether that's like vaping, smoking, drinking, excessive eating of like, garbage if you can't avoid it. It is allowing yourself to also be careful about what you're exposing yourself to through social media, like toxic viewing, watching harsh things. These are all energy suckers. Okay. And also making sure that you're honoring your exhaustion, because often when we have to work too much, we have a resistance to sleep. When it's time to go to bed, for example, we're like, it's playtime, I'm finally not working. And that's really, really hard. Okay. So you may want to deal with that specifically, find ways to create more rest and fall asleep easier, because maybe having more play when you're awake, even if you're tired, having more playtime, working that in, can help you to actually get into a sleep pattern. There's, also, I think, a great need to talk about it more. I think we need to, talk about how we're feeling in the exhaustion and the burnout. We need to stop acting like it isn't happening. And by all means, you need to fight the system. And that's probably the last thing you want to hear, the last thing you have energy for, but that's what they're counting on. So get into activism, because life is not supposed to be this way. It's corrupt. We are slaves in a system, and it's not like this everywhere else. You could also leave the country. I mean, you could go somewhere else where they actually have a life. They actually have healthcare. They actually have days off, and they're not treated like a criminal for it. And I think it's something more people are considering these days. Something like 45% of the population said last week in polls that they're out of here, so there are alternatives. I mean, you could even better off go there poor and start from nothing. You know what I mean? It's probably less work. Winnie says, "How do you rebuild confidence after a big failure?" Well, look at the lessons. I've had so many humiliating things happen. I'm about to go and do something up on stage where, a couple years ago when I was up on that same stage, something humiliating happened and it was like on film and there were pictures of it everywhere. And I'm like, what the hell? Like you can't, it's like haunting and it'll pop up and I'll have to look at it again. I'm like, my God. Okay. So here's what you need to do. When you have a failure or something embarrassing happens or whatever, right? You feel vulnerable or exposed in any way, you feel less than, you just really need to take it and be like, whatever, I'm human. I'm allowed. Okay. Look at everyone else around you. Look at the train wrecks around you. Okay. It's sort of the equivalent of people saying, when you're up on stage, think of everyone as being naked, or if you have to do public speaking, think of them as naked. It's the same idea. Look around you. Do you really think any of these people are in a position to judge you? Okay. And that's just what you see. You don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. Okay. Forget it. Forget what everybody else thinks. But when you look at a situation that does make you feel like you could have done better, be realistic about that and be willing to do whatever you can to improve. Okay. The last couple years, I've thought about that incident and I have, thought of ways, if the event ever comes up again, I will make sure, I've perfected some things, I've improved. And I've spent the last couple days as I get ready to approach that stage again in literal real time, really literally playing out how I'm going to do it. So preparation, practice, and having an enthusiasm to try again, I think is key. Also, understanding that it's ego, fear, manipulation, and control, right? That is disciplining you, and a negative inner, dialogue. Don't talk to yourself that way. Just be careful the way you speak to yourself about the failure itself. And ultimately, we are here on earth to alchemize. So every time something awful happens, I like to say, well, this is an opportunity for transmutation. How can I take that pain and turn it into power? Where's the growth? What are the lessons? What's the bigger picture here? And that's your real win. It really can be applied to many other parts of life as well. Jesse says, how do you handle feeling like you're behind in life compared to others your age? Well, you may be, a lot of us went through abusive, neglectful childhoods, for example, or we weren't properly diagnosed with something, or, maybe we were diagnosed, but we weren't given the treatment that we need. There are a million different, you're marginalized, whatever, we have a million reasons for sometimes being behind. But again, this isn't a race. And what other people think or feel has nothing to do with you. And eventually people who were behind are guaranteed to become the head, so that, the head becomes the tail and the tail becomes the head. That is how it goes. So if you keep focus on your path, not everyone else and where everyone else is, you stay focused on your path, you will eventually exceed them. Okay. And a lot of them never learn that skill, to focus on themselves. Do we have any more coming in, or are we at time? Okay, is this my last one? Clinton V says, how do you know if you should forgive someone who hurt you or just move on? Ooh, that's a good question. The ability someone has to change is in direct alignment with how willing they are to grow. And if someone shows a pattern where there's a lack of growth, self-reflection, discipline, okay, it's over. That's it. Patterns never lie. Okay. So if they have shown an ability to do that from time to time and they're apologizing, maybe they do. Maybe you could give it a little while, but I would say at the first sign of like failure, you need to seriously probably accept that they're just not going to do it. A lot of people will make big promises and then make a couple changes, and then 3 weeks later, 3 months later, it's over. They're right back to where they started. Okay. So if it seems like something they're capable of doing because you have proof of it in the past, maybe consider it. If not, don't consider it. Okay. Any other questions? We are at time. Okay, beautiful. Well, you guys, I so appreciate the support on this show. It is absolutely one of my favorites. And I would ask everyone right now to please give this video a thumbs up. Please do subscribe. If you really want to support me, go over to my YouTube channel at Ask Ivy and subscribe there. Drop a comment of any kind. I really want to hear where you guys are tuning in from. And I will see you next Wednesday for my Ask Ivy show, where you could drop a question of any kind and I deliver out messages from spirit and I answer you through psychic mediumship. If you need a reading in the meantime, I do work internationally. Go to Ivy Rivera, psychicmedium.com. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Diana. Have a great night.